Good afternoon, everyone. So I am incredibly thrilled to be here. First, on just this momentous occasion, and WLD, congratulations. We've been celebrating inside of McKinsey some similar milestones, and so I just know the import of this occasion and what an accomplishment it is to say 10 years we have sustained something in an organization. How many things can you point out in a corporate organization that sustain and energize for 10 years? And this is the marker of another 10 years and the 10 years after that. Now, hopefully in another 10 years, we're celebrating the connectivity and the fun of being together, as opposed to some of the needs around promotion and retention that we all still face in our organizations. But that's just an incredible accomplishment. So very much excited to be here and be a part of it. So I am going to say just a very few remarks, and then we're going to make this a true exchange, because the point of this session is to hear and share ideas from one another. And I think I'd just start us with a little bit of the challenge, which is, we've done this research around Women Matter and Diversity Matters, and really looked for any number of years at what's at stake here. And from our research around Diversity Matters, we looked at 366 companies around the world, and we found two very important things. Something UPS knows, and in some of the data that Lisa shared earlier is very true, which is we've got very clear mandate around diversity and inclusion as the right thing to do, the thoughtful thing to do. As a Black woman, I clearly feel the personal mission and commitment to it. But my lens, and at McKinsey, it's not true until there's facts and until there's numbers and until there's analysis. And so we set out to really figure out, does diversity in fact matter to the bottom line? And when we started on that journey, we didn't know what the answer was going to be. The good news is that it does in fact matter, and that we found with statistical significance that companies that have greater levels of diversity in their top team, both gender and ethnic diversity, and in their boards, are much more likely to outperform their peers. So 15% more likely on gender diversity and 35% more likely on ethnic diversity. And that's pretty powerful, because most organizations don't start at a place where UPS is, which is to be able to say, when we put WLD in place, we saw reduction in turnover or regretted losses, but we saw increase in sales. Most organizations don't have that fact base. So now we know. And yet, as we look at our most recent research around women in the workplace, and we look at the pipeline, and we see 46% of women at the front in that entry level, but only 19% women in the C-suite, or 3% women of color in the C-suite, we know that our work is not done. We know that there is still a challenge ahead of us. And so as we understand that challenge and want to move past it, the reason we're talking about having this conversation today is let's lay out those barriers. Let's tease them out. Let's get them out. Let's take this powerful room of great thinkers and problem solvers and people who are in the nitty-gritty of this every single day, and figure out what are some of the things that we're already doing and can learn from one another, or new ideas that we could carry forward and leverage the power of this group to really change the world, as Andrea said. So we're going to start with our first question, and we'll give 1 or 2 minutes for folks to think about it. But what are the most pressing barriers that you're facing today that prevent you from progressing on your gender diversity goals in your organization? And then when you're ready, you can just press that lovely little microphone button and let us know.
Sarah, can you hear me? Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Tyann Keys Ballard. I'm with PNC Bank. I happen to, run our internal employee business resource group. So one of the things that I hear a lot is the idea of confidence. I don't have the right words to say to advocate for myself. I need someone to be in there advocating for me. So I think one of the things I'm hearing over and over and over again from our employee base and just friends and folks that I run into is, I need to work on my confidence. So I think books like Lean In help. I think conferences like this help, in kind of moving us forward but that is without a doubt the thing I hear most is confidence.
So that using your voice element that Carla mentioned earlier.
Yes, asking for what it is that you want, being specific about it.
Excellent. Okay. Other thoughts? So we've got one on confidence and using your voice to ask what you want. Other barriers I see way in the back.
Yes, ma'am. This is Angela Robb with Path Builders, and we help organizations develop their talents. And one thing that we hear from so many women is their frustration that their organizations are speaking of diversity and inclusion. However, they're not seeing the investment dollars in their professional development. What are your thoughts?
So let's add that for sure to the list of barriers, because I think that's one of the biggest challenges that, at least as we have worked with organizations on this topic, we very consistently hear that that investment. And I think as you go back to some of the comments that Carla made around intention and accountability, part of the investment dollars that link to those are part of those critical enablers. So we've got the investment dollars not following, folks not knowing what to ask for or how to ask. Other barriers that organizations are facing.
Yes, hi. My name is Tanya Adams. I'm currently a diversity program director with Anthem. And two things I would like to cite as an opportunity and things that I've recently heard from speaking with women in the organization. One is the perception of work-life balance. How can I balance it all? The next level seems labor intensive. It seems very stressful. And, how can I factor all of that in and still be competent at what I do? And then the second piece is I was just recently speaking with a group of women who talked about this perception of if there are 10 requirements for a job, thinking that I need to have at least 9 of them as a female to even apply, versus our counterparts, male counterparts may see 10 requirements and say, hey, I have 2. Yeah, I'm going to apply, qualify.
I was going to say 4, but 2 is probably more realistic.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Yes.
So I'm from AutoZone. We have a national and an international footprint in Mexico and Brazil. We're just starting our program, but I think one of our biggest challenges right now is the dispersed workforce and the geography and trying to deal with the technologies, figuring out how to get people to read things where they don't have time, and also making sure that things are prepared for them in a way that they can consume. So I think the geography, the dispersed workforce, and then just time, those are really big factors for us.
That's great. And definitely we've been hearing more and more in the dialogue this issue around in the world of technology in which we live, the complexity, the wonderful benefits that it provides, but also the complexities and challenges. Other barriers folks are facing?
So one barrier that I highlight is this unconscious bias that diversity is code for less qualified. Students use that word, but there's this notion that, are they a good performer? Or, oh yes, I'm just using this word, but it's connected to that.
So diversity is code for underqualified. Yes.
Yeah, hi, Amy Whitley. I think one of the things that UPS and a lot of companies struggle with is this issue around the frozen middle, kind of this issue of middle managers buying into the belief that we really have a problem, and I think they're really squeezed for the reality of driving revenue and profitability and production, and certainly we had the support from the top, but I think it's the middle managers that maybe don't feel like they see the need. Maybe they haven't received the training that senior leaders have received, and they don't necessarily see the need and don't believe that we have the same needs around this topic. And then there's, there may not be the accountability yet around that. So the same as there is around other production accountability metrics.
I think that's a fantastic point. In the last 18 months or so of conversations on this topic, the two things I see organizations most trying to tackle is how to unleash the middle managers as a force for good and for change, recognizing that, with an incredibly supportive CEO and even a groundswell at the bottom, that middle piece, if it's not empowered, enabled to actually make the change. And then the second piece is around how to create accountability.
Hi, Sarah. One of the things I often talk to UPS is for women to put themselves in a position to be able to run a business. Whether it's a strong financial element, whether it's the operational discipline of the business, it's very critical, whether it's marketing analysis you do, but to put yourself in a position to take that step, possibly in front of you.
Any other barriers? Because we're going to get to the fun part, which is how do we solve some of these things? Yeah.
You need a partner.
Bi-directional communication. So we're really good at now with women's leadership development, empowering women to seek additional development opportunities, to seek a mentor or an advocate or a network of people. But how do we make it more comfortable so the relationship and communication go back and forth, that we all get very comfortable with how we evolve?
Perfect. I think we have a pretty good list to get started on.
So, running out of paper.
You know what? There was just one more I wanted to add. I'm sorry. Just
Please.
to add on to what this young lady was saying in front of me. My name is Lee Jennings, and I'm the IT chairperson at UPS. So I have that great honor of representing a lot of women, hundreds of women actually, at UPS, which is great. But since we're putting a list together, I figure we might want to add ourselves onto that list. And I only say that through my own experiences because of some of our backgrounds. A lot of times I'll catch myself thinking, why didn't I just speak up a minute ago? Why did I allow myself to be uncomfortable? Now, so if we understand or are aware that we ourselves could be barriers, I think that could also change our little outlook on how we overcome a lot of things too.
For sure. And as we look at the research, we see a couple of things. We see, Romaine, to your point, women, if they do advance to senior levels, most frequently doing it in more administrative roles as opposed to line roles. That's been a very clear trend for a number of years. Or opting out for reasons of, lots of there's confidence, there's wanting the stress or not wanting the stress, not, having clarity about what the path forward looks like and how well it can be done. So I think definitely what we've been seeing in the research and some of the attitudes around women in the workplace. Any others to add to the list before we go into tackling? Because the next question is going to be, let's learn from the experience of this group of folks in the room. Let's talk about what we have been doing in our organizations to push on some of these, recognizing that if somebody had the secret sauce, we'd all be buying it and using it copiously. So not there yet, but let's have this dialogue to help us get along the path. All right. So I think we'll go into some of the issues, and Andrea's been keeping us honest, so we won't let any fall off. But I'd love to hear reflections as you heard folks raise barriers. If there are things that you've been doing in your organization that you think help move the needle on any of these, I'd love to hear from you and what you've been doing. Do we need a reminder of the list?
Would you like me to?
Oh, go ahead.
I think having the funding now in this election, having people who are there and kind of be practical and raise questions about making sure that there is better inclusion, both on those who need to be as well as the candidates we have, and then that issue of not just in the hiring, but the retention, which I think is important.
Has anybody been doing anything particularly innovative on making sure they have diverse slates? The bar doesn't have to be that high. You can. It doesn't have to be.
Just know what that means.
So the interesting thing that we've been seeing, people are more and more saying we need to have diverse slates and making that a request. Where we've seen more organizations going is making it a requirement. The role can't be filled until you prove to me that the slate was in fact diverse. Don't come back without a diverse slate or you'll persist with an open role. And then also pushing to using technology in some instances to kind of do that blind first round of interviews or screening so that you actually feed the learning into, and you use machine learning to actually figure out who should get passed through the first round so that you have a much more blind eye to that dynamic. Are folks seeing that or not seeing that in their organizations? If you are, maybe just show of hands. Few hands going up, so still some work to do there for sure. Other solutions that folks are putting in place?
Hi, everyone. This is Kelly Gruber from EY, Ernst & Young. I think what we realized is that having a hierarchical structure, right, coming in at the entry level and moving up through the organization, we've needed to put some things in place to help people at that entry level understand, right, coming out of college, what's it like to work in a global organization? How can we help you, especially for our women and ethnic minorities who may not have interned with us, really don't know what it's like to work in the corporate world, and then giving them the bridge to the next level. If you've read the book, The Leadership Pipeline, right, what do you let go of so that you can move forward and take on things like that? But what kind of structure and development opportunities can we give them, especially as they continue through their career and then have to make decisions about the path that they're going to take within the organization. So we found that that's been pretty helpful in developing our people, especially women and ethnic minorities, to get through that career and understand it and make the kind of decisions that are going to help them be successful.
Sure. I think there's a pipeline, discussion of the pipeline. Anyone have anything to add to that as far as what they've been doing?
My name is Rosalia Thomas. I work for the IBM Corporation. I think for us is the need for accountability to flow from the top of the organization down, right? So the conversations at our chairman's reviews of top talent is, why does your slate look this way? And you can't tell me that in a corporation of 450,000 people worldwide, you can't find the talent, right? And if you can't find the talent because it's a unique niche, then what are you doing to ensure that that niche is filled from a pipeline perspective? So there's a lot of focus right now. I come from a world where if you measure it, it will happen. So our senior leaders have part of their comp plan tied to the diversity and the opportunities within their organizational structure. We have put incredible amount of focus right now on actually bringing outside talent into the corporation, both at the entry level and the most senior level of the company. For that particular reason, because the diversity is not being grown organically at the rate that we need it to be grown. I do think in the technology space, unfortunately, we do have some unique challenges, and especially with females, because they are not going into the engineering and math and science. We are losing them between 13 and 17 years of age, and corporations like mine and all of us here have to take some responsibility for that. We've got to engage STEM at a lower level, because by the time you get to college, if you go into a classroom and there's 50 of them and 47 are males, you're going to recruit from them. I mean, that's the reality of life. So we've got some work to do, and hopefully females will take the charge to ensure that they're reaching down into the high schools and middle schools and bring the girls along.
We see much more, by the way, of corporate and academic partnerships, as well as corporations saying, I'm going to put a program in place that reaches back into middle school, not because I'll get every one of those students, but if I don't intervene, the set of talent that I'm left with is not actually the pool of talent that I would like to have going forward. So I've got to intervene even if I don't get 100% of the benefit. Yes.
Hi, my name is Angela Watson, and I have responsibility for sales at UPS for the Americas region. And I think our responsibility as leaders, especially as female leaders in this organization, all the organizations represented here in the room, are that we have to do more. UPS has a strong program, a mentorship program, and it's very important that we oftentimes align people, maybe it's young females with females who've been with the company for a while, so they can ask those tough questions and they can understand what it takes to navigate, what it takes to have work-life balance. But I think we have to do even more than that. I have responsibility. I sit on a board for the University of Kansas for our supply chain management curriculum. And one of the things they've asked me to do is I come back, I do guest lectures, but they've also asked me to reach out into this very male-dominated curriculum and see if we can recruit women and let them see what a career is like for a female in this industry. So I think, as I said, our responsibility is that we have to do more.
Because we don't have that many things on our plates or anything like that. Other perspectives? I was wondering, back to the investment question, has anyone been particularly successful at getting investment for their efforts in place? That's not so helpful for all of us. Still work to be done, but maybe. Oh, great.
Well, 3 years ago, we started our Women's Initiative, which started the conversation about what are we going to do about D&I. That was led by my CEO. In January, he decided that we should have a strategic question around this, and what are we going to do for our company? It's 85,000 people who need to understand that AutoZone is an amazing company and has all these amazing opportunities. But we were losing people and continue to lose people because they don't understand. So we did some studying, we did some benchmarking, and one of the things they came back with was, gosh, you need to have a director of diversity and talent management, and that's yours truly. And it was one of those opportunities. I was really happy with what I was doing. And they said, you want to try this? And you said, yes. So that's the initial funding, is for a role. Now it's up to myself and my sponsors, the Senior Vice President of HR, my Executive Vice President of Operations, and also my Executive Vice President and General Counsel, to put together the programs that we expect to see and drive over the next 3 to 5 years. One of the cool things that they did as part of this was they also sponsored a diversity council that is created from all my entire company, from different parts of my company. And so that's my support mechanism. That's my network. So between that and having OD and having training, we got a good start. So, but we've got to start. And so that's actually why I'm so honored to be here. So that's the initial investment.
Yes.
None? I'm holding it down. Great, thank you. So this is Ann Schwartz. I'm with UPS at GBS, and I was listening to Deborah speak earlier today about her 3 online courses that are free through the massive online open courses. So one of the things that we have to get very creative about is utilizing these free materials out there so that we don't always have to jump to the budgets first. So I just wanted to highlight that.
So I want to quickly go, I think, Amy, you posed this question around how do we really get that middle management layer moving and driving this. And I wondered if there are any folks in the room who had had success in making that type of movement. Diane?
Hey, I think it just goes back to the confidence factor. If you have a charge, if you're willing to make the case to the middle managers, for me, it's just been me going to the different line of business heads, making the case for why their employees, well, since we're a bank, a lot of our employees are in the branches. and they're kind of scattered around. So one of the things that we do is offer training virtually, because one of the things they worry about is, okay, how do I get from point A to point B? You know, I'm a teller today, but tomorrow I want to do what you do, Diane, in commercial banking, or what Susan does in corporate banking. And so we offer training, but we had to make the case that, hey, you know, allow your highest performing employees, you know, give them this as an added benefit of coming to our trainings, you know, in person, or being allowed to take an hour to, you know, be a part of our personal development training online. So you just, for us, it's just going to the people and conveying the message in a way that you can persuade them to do what it is you need them to do.
So it's interesting. I think you're making the point that if you're going to be a high performer in our organization, you have to demonstrate these behaviors. And I'm giving you the space to figure out what the behaviors are, but you've got to demonstrate them to be defined and qualified as a high performer.
It's an incentive for them. It's an incentive for them to incentivize their employees.
Yeah. I think one of the interesting things is a lot of organizations have been struggling with this. What I've seen a few, not many, but a few doing is defining those leadership behaviors. It's what questions should you be asking in the meeting? One organization went specific enough to say, let's take some of our middle managers, let's sit down with them and their teams and see what they're doing, and actually give them the feedback of, hey, here's what's happening in your meeting. By the way, you've got, 5 or 6 folks on your team. Every time the one woman on your team spoke, someone jumped in to cut her off. You spoke 70% of the time, and most of the perspectives that were taking airtime were in agreement with you. That's not getting the best thinking out of the group, so that you have the actual fact base and the feedback, and then you have the supporting behaviors to try to help them change. That's a difficult, time-consuming, expensive way to go about it, but doing that in small pockets and scaling it, some organizations have been finding success with. So I want to turn us to our last question, unless, Andrew, you have anything that I haven't.
Well, I just wanted to say that, I want to continue the story of how this evolved, and you're part of that story, Sarah. Because when I sent out, and Ed Martinez sent out invitations, and I followed up on the invitations to certain people, Tom Barkin gave it to you, rightfully so, and right from the start, we knew we were on the same page. And that's why I'm proud to say that McKinsey is a partner in the WLE Thought Leadership Summit, and will continue past this summit, and we hope that we can do something. And, David had mentioned that the 10 years was a celebration. And we hope in the next 10 years, David, we're here, not having to celebrate something where we have an interactive workshop like this, but that parity has been accomplished. Our grandchildren won't know about gender parity. It will be the norm. So with that, I think that you have some ideas about how we're going to move forward, and also wrap up, what we've done today. And the conversation has started, and the power in sharing, I think, is very important, and connectivity, and we should continue to do so, because collaboration is key. Atlanta has so many powerful companies here. This is the start. So
I think maybe those are some really powerful words to continue to the last question, which is, we started a conversation today. We talked about some of the barriers. We've shared some of the ideas of what's working in organizations, and we recognize that even in the fullness of that discussion, that doesn't get us to nirvana, right? That doesn't get us to gender parity. And so I think the last question was, given the opportunity for Atlanta, I think the aspiration for this event and the next sort of phase forward was, how to establish Atlanta as a place where women want to be to work, and where there are parity opportunities and equitable opportunities. The question really is, what can this group do to collaborate going forward, and what are some ideas from you guys around, is it more idea exchanges like this? Are there other ways in which this group could collaborate to help move the needle in our individual organizations?
Hi, can you hear me? Carolina Klint. I am the South Zone lead for the commercial division of AIG. I think these networks are incredibly powerful because there is a lack of role models. And I think just coming to an event like this and hearing different ideas and different suggestions helps us go back to our own organizations feeling empowered and inspired. And I think that's a really, really important starting point. With that said, I think we can probably take it to the next level. But as a starting point, I think it's really terrific. I want to make one more comment in terms of the barrier, the first barrier that was mentioned, confidence, and how do I speak for myself. One thing that we have talked a lot about at AIG as of late is maybe sometimes it's easier to speak for someone else. So don't undervalue the fact that you can have on someone else's opportunities. So pegging each other, pulling each other into conversations, promoting each other, talking about good things that you did in front of others. I think that's a really valuable, powerful tool that we can help each other with.
Thank you. Yes.
Oh, okay. To me, we've been talking about, in a way, the barriers on a systemic basis. And so, speaking personally, as a white male and been part of the barrier, and I still may be part of the barrier because every time I speak about this stuff, I find out something new about myself. But I know that in an organization I was in a while ago, and I could not get by with this at UPS or IBM nowadays. But then, and if you take the bell curve, there's plenty of organizations I could get by in this. But in an organization I was in, I promoted the first woman into sales. And the backlash that I got was remarkable. And I didn't expect it. But it was, luckily I was successful and high enough in the hierarchy that I could just push back. Didn't matter. But breaking ranks of males, and I've also done a lot of diversity work. So I've been in activities where we separated by men regardless of race and women regardless of race, and biology trumps race, et cetera. It seems like every time I've done that. So my point being, this whole breaking ranks and working on an interpersonal level. And Carla mentioned relationship currency, and that's what I'm talking about. That's the other avenue that is so important in what we're saying. How to build the relationship. So what to do next this forum is terrific. And I think at times the inclusion of men now and then at the right times can make a difference with folks that want to make it, men that want to make a difference along with women, knowing that that's what it's going to take for U.S. to remain competitive and successful.
I think the push I hear, at least, is maybe two things. One, which is, could you frame something to help materially move the needle on people's ability to build that relationship currency, their awareness of it, and their ability to do something about it? Maybe there's a second piece, which is, could you dream a little bigger and think about how do you create allies? And is there some, not just individual company call for that, but a much broader call for that in an organized fashion to do it? Any other challenges to this group or thoughts? So I would just challenge that the collaboration potential in this room and the opportunity as a network, as an opportunity to continue to move things forward is something that I hope that this group of people will not let slip away, and that you will find ways to connect and be able to move the needle.
And I appreciate that you have participated in the celebration of the 10 years, looking forward to the next 10 years, and will take a transformational journey with us. Thank you.